America's in serious, serious trouble. These are not normal times. We're going in for a rough ride. It's a very trying time throughout the world economy. China's in trouble, Germany's in trouble, America's in trouble. And that's my concern. The great battle on the planet Earth is Marxism versus capitalism. In 1965, I was 17 years old. I went to school in New York. I went to military school. And my economics teacher had us read the Communist Manifesto by Marx. That was pretty radical, you know what I mean, to a school teaching Marxism. But rather than study Keynes and Malthus and all this, he had us read Marx. And I realized most school teachers, like my poor dad, are Marxists. Not bad people, don't get me wrong. It's like a religion. And as you know, what Marx said was the abolition of private property was the #1 goal. And to this guy, Klaus Schwab, out of Austria, wherever he's at, he says, someday you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. That's what's going on the planet. And a lot of people subscribe to that. So my poor dad was a Marxist. Number 2 was that workers of the world unite. My poor dad was head of the labor union, teachers union. Today, the biggest union in America, teachers unions. And that's why we have no financial education in our school. The third thing was a graduating income tax was essential for the spread of communism. We were taxed to death now. And America was founded as a tax-free nation. In 1773, we had the Boston Tea Party to kick the bloody English out. But what happened in 1773, the bankers control the world. Like it or not, they control the world.
They have smarter people than everyone gives them credit for.
My poor dad was head of education for the state of Hawaii. Very smart man, good man, big-hearted. But when I read Communist Manifesto in 65, I went, he's a Marxist. Abolition of private property, hated the rich, liked taxes, labor unions. And that's a free country. You can think what you want. And my rich dad was my best friend's father, capitalist. So I had both capitalist education and a Marxist education. So I went to military school to learn all this, you know. I flew for the U.S. Marine Corps in Vietnam, and we killed a lot of communists out there. It was sad. My concern is, as you know, America's going to war again. Because every time the economy goes bad, war starts. So that's what brought Hitler to power back in the early years, you know.
But do you think it's going to happen again?
We're already in it.
Can we explore it a bit? Because that's a bit fascinating to me. I mean, by the way, it's something I'm concerned about. Because when things are going bad for a political movement, let's start a war.
Yes, and you can print more money. I fought in Vietnam twice as a Marine, you know.
Yeah, it's very interesting about, you talk about institutionalized communism or Marxism, perhaps is a better way of putting it, and every version of Marxism. Today it's sort of watered down so you can't recognize it, but it is preeminent in education institutions. Yeah. Whether it's university
Marxist.
or schools. Yeah.
Yep.
But they don't label it as Marxist.
No.
They sort of...
Liberal or...
Yeah, they have a different view on it. Well, let's look after everybody sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to look after you. How is that in America, and why does everybody cop it? Why do you put up with it?
Again, military school, in New York. I had nominations to Naval Academy, Merchant Marine Academy, Army, Air Force, and Coast Guard. And we were taught acta non verba, deeds, not words. So the lesson we were taught as military officers, watch what a person does, not what they say. So if you watch politicians, I don't care what party, watch what they do, not what they say. So the first thing, I'm not Republican or Democrat, the first thing Biden did was he cut the Keystone pipeline from Canada to America. And I'm an oil guy. I went to school, I worked for Standard Oil. I went to school to drive oil tankers for Standard Oil. And the price, I was selling oil under Trump for $30 a barrel. The moment Biden came to office and cut that pipeline, oil went to 130 US. I knew exactly what he's going to do. He wants to create a gap between rich and poor. And that's revolution. As you know, it takes that gap to cause revolution.
Division.
Division, yeah. Anger. So America is a very divided, angry country right now. And they can't figure out what's happening. You know, why did Biden cut the pipeline? He didn't have to. The second thing, he just opened our borders and 10 million people streamed across. Watch what a person does, not what they say. So there's so much goofy stuff going on in America. We're so divided right now. It's not safe. It's not good.
Somebody else, perhaps Kennedy. How big a threat is he to both Biden and to Trump?
Well, Bobby Kennedy's a good man. Nobody owns him. And he wrote about this COVID thing and all this. He wrote against Fauci. Big Pharma runs the world, so do the banks, as you know.
Yeah.
So Bobby Kennedy is like his family. You can't buy them. I like Bobby Kennedy. It's not Republican or Democrat. I just want somebody whose actions speak louder than words. And so Bobby Kennedy took on Big Pharma, which is good. My concern, you know, as Stalin said years ago, he says, it's not who votes that counts, it's who counts the votes. But America's a bad habit of taking out the Kennedys. So they're messing with power and the banking powers, you know, the cartels. The Federal Reserve Bank is not an American bank. It's a cartel of the richest banks in the world. You don't play their game, they stomp on you. So that's my concern. You know, money is power, like it or not.
What do we do about that?
My idea way back when was educate yourself. I learned investing playing Monopoly. And Maria Montessori, she's one of the great educational entrepreneurs. She said, what the hand does, the mind remembers. So in school, I sat there, words went in one ear, out the other, just said nothing. And that was my poor dad, lecture, talk. Whereas my rich dad taught me about investing, playing Monopoly, 4 greenhouses, red hotel. So today I own 10,000 rental units and 3 hotels. I also invest in Bitcoin, I use debt, and I use all that. Everything school doesn't teach you. So when I saw your CV, with mortgages and all that, that's essential. But you're messing with fire. It's the golden rule. Who has the goal makes the rule.
The depth of their resources, both money-wise, but intellectually, but also data. Their data resources are outrageous, what they know about you. If you're a customer of somebody, a big bank or a big pharma or a big telco, they know everything about your life.
Yep.
They know what you do, where you go, how much you spend, how often, what on, how many times you go to the casino, online casino, gamble. And as this cash disappears, our behaviors become much more available for others to collect data on. Where do you see us going with all this stuff, Robert? I feel like it's closing in on all of us and we can't stop it. Marxism is not only about making sure that no one owns anything, but in fact, we don't even own our own dignity. We will lose all our privacy.
Correct. Well, I think it was inevitable it was going to happen, that money would go crypto. I think I have 70 Bitcoin.
Crypto is good. I'm talking about when banks won't let you deal in cash.
No, what I'm saying is I'm getting off the banking system. So I own a lot of gold and silver, things like that. So I don't want anything they can print. So I own stocks, but at my company, I took them public. My goal was to take companies public on New York, NASDAQ, and Toronto Stock Exchange. I got New York, I got Toronto Stock Exchange. This summer I go public on NASDAQ. So I control the paper, but I'm an entrepreneur. That's trained to do this stuff. Take control of your life. And if you can control your money, you control your life. Years ago, I read a book by R. Buckminster Fuller. It was in '74, Groves Universal Cash Ice. Simply said, your wealth is stolen via your money. So the harder you work for money, more tax you pay, inflation. You put it in the bank, inflation steals it, fees, all that. I'm not against it. I'm saying wake up.
Should I buy Bitcoin today? Bitcoin's at record highs at the moment again. Should I buy these cryptocurrencies? Should I start to step into these environments? When should they invest in these environments? At the height of the market, or is the market going to continue to grow? Or should they seek another one? Like perhaps they should look at Ethereum or some other currency that's cheaper. Should young people approach these markets?
Well, it's very simple. You've got to choose your education. If you listen to a financial planner like a super person, they can put you in stocks and bonds are crashing. It used to be bonds were considered safe. Today, they're the most dangerous assets you can put your money into. The S&P 500 is at all-time highs. And my generation, the boomer generation, is getting ready to retire. This little cartoon character, Lucy in Peanuts? And so Lucy would hold the football like this, and Charlie would run up and she'd pull the ball away. I think they're going to do that to the boomers. They're going to steal our pensions. They're already stealing it. So the American baby boom generation is a 50-50 chance won't retire. All they got is their house now, most of them. But homelessness is on the increase. Not bad here yet. But look at San Francisco, the most beautiful cities on earth, very much like Sydney. People are homeless all over the place. They can't afford a house. I went to see it myself. It's terrible. It's spreading all across America. Well, there's no financial education in America. You look at our leaders, most of the people who run our Federal Reserve Bank and our government, they're PhDs, like my poor dad. PhD stands for poor, helpless, and desperate. This guy Bernanke, Fed chairman, when it crashed, he dropped interest rates to 0 and printed trillions. So today, America's in this huge bubble. There's cash sitting everywhere. Stock market's in a bubble, real estate's in a bubble, and all this. How much longer can it go? Today, America's the #1 debtor nation in the world. Every 90 days, they're printing another $1 trillion to cover the shortfall. They're printing more money because our taxes don't cover our expenses. They're printing $1 trillion every 90 days.
Wow.
And then you look at China. Evergrande went down and Market Garden went down. China's going bankrupt, and so is Germany. So, as I say, when America sneezes, Aussie gets pneumonia. And so we're the lucky country, but the world is caving in around you guys. So that's the spooky part. So that's why I say to everybody, buy some silver. Silver's about $20. It used to be 50. And then I like Bitcoin because Bitcoin gets stronger, dollar gets weaker.
This is a correlation.
Yeah. So I own I think 60 Bitcoin or something, not much, but I was buying it at 6,000. It's better that than losing it,
But given that you're sitting on a profit, would you consider cashing it in and taking your profit off the table now?
Well, you're a banker. I borrow against assets.
And can you borrow against your Bitcoin?
Of course I can.
Yep.
I say gold and silver are God's money because God put it here. But Bitcoin is people's money. It's the blockchain technology. And blockchain technology is basically a ledger, a financial statement. And I'm afraid I don't have any proof of this, but they'll use central bank money to surveil you. That's what China does. So they know what you're spending your money on. If you're buying too many drugs, they'll come after you. You're doing this. So they're going to use our money as a surveillance tool. I'm afraid of that. So that's why I own tons of silver coins. So if push comes to a shove, I'll come pay you in silver. I was a pilot in Vietnam. It was in '72, and Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. So my rich dad said, watch out, the world's going to change. So I said, how's it going to change? So I flew behind enemy lines. Marines are not the brightest guys on earth. Let's go buy some gold. He said, yeah, but it's enemy lines. He says, we'll be in and out very quick. So my co-pilot and I, we're not smart guys. We walk up to the gold window. We're in a village. People are staring, what the hell are these guys doing here? We disarmed, no weapons, walked in. So we come as capitalists, not Marines, I'm talking to this little Vietnamese woman with red teeth. And I think gold was, let's say, $50. I tried to give her 30 for it. And she looked at me and went, spot. I went, what? I said, 30. Spot. I didn't know what spot meant. I said, I got a spot in my shirt or something. And she was talking about gold is the same price throughout the world. That little Vietnamese woman, I don't think she went to Harvard. She was teaching me the best lessons of all. So we came home empty-handed, and I flew then to Hong Kong, and I bought my first gold Kruger Rand. $50 I paid for it. I still have that Kruger Rand today.
Oh, wow.
And it's now worth $2,200. So the Kruger Rand didn't change in size, but the dollar came down, And your financial statement is what your banker wants to see. Your banker doesn't care what your report card says. So I can borrow a lot of money because I have strong financials, as you know. If I have bad financials, you give me a credit card.
Yeah, and I'll charge more.
Yeah, this is your greatest asset, your greatest liability. Two most important words in business.
Cash flow totally is.
Which way is it flowing, in or out? You want it flowing in. Well, I think the problem with Trump, he's got guts,
He definitely does.
And he stepped on a lot of toes, bankers. They don't like him. Bobby Kennedy, John Kennedy, they got taken out. So even if he's elected, his life is more in danger than. It's hard to stand up to the banking system. But when they weaponize the FBI and the court system against the man, that's fascism. They take our court system and go after him. So America's in serious, serious trouble. Serious trouble. That's why he got taken out, He said, I'm going to drain the swamp. He's talking about the central banks, the swamp. They're all in cahoots.
What hope is there for the US?
Well, I always say, put yourself on your own gold standard or silver standard, educate yourself. We're going in for a rough ride. Let me say it again. China is in serious financial trouble. America is the biggest debtor nation in the world, printing $1 trillion every 90 days. Germany's in bankruptcy. But if you're hoping the government's going to save you, you're in trouble.
In 2016, I sat opposite Trump and I interviewed him. And he said to me, one of the things he's concerned about is Australia's trading relationship with China.
Yeah.
He said, let me tell you something. Yeah, they'll take all your iron ore and everything else that you're selling, coal, etc., that you're selling to them. He said, but ultimately you'll end up owing them something. You've got to do something about that. Because the biggest owner of the debt in the United States is China. Today, I would say it's quite courageous, but sort of accurate. It's all come to roost now.
Yep.
8 years later, it's all come to roost.
Yep.
We now have this problem.
Yep.
And China's falling apart economically as well. It sounds like we could be in globally for some other crisis.
Correct.
What it's called, I don't know. It won't be a GFC, maybe a financial crisis, who knows? Because the value of their paper, the Chinese paper that it holds in relation to American debt,
correct,
is not worth anywhere near what it was issued at.
Correct.
And China needs as much as they can possibly get, because they've got a few problems internally themselves. Are you sort of not predicting, but suggesting there could be a crisis on its way?
There is one. We're in it right now.
We're in it now.
Well, Xi, his mandate, he's going to take Taiwan back.
So create a war, solve the problem.
Yeah, that's war, And so what's going on in Ukraine and all this, it's terrible. I mean, I hate war. I just hate it. I fought twice in Vietnam, killed a lot of people. But it's about money, as you know. It's a very dangerous time on earth, so it's important that everybody take responsibility for yourselves financially, not expect the government to take care of you. Save gold, silver, or Bitcoin, and protect yourself now with your brain, But don't expect the government to take care of you. You sit behind these superpowers going to war, and it's spooky.
Do you think war is inevitable?
Well, historically, yes. See, what brought Hitler to power was the Weimar Republic when World War I, and they made Germany pay reparations. So Germany went bankrupt. Hitler came to power. So every time there's chaos, a dictator comes to power. So that was fascist, that was Mussolini and Hitler. These are not normal times. But I don't know. I mean, I would just prepare.
economically prepare. You're not sort of suggesting be doomsdayer and go and hunker down and build a vault underneath your house and fill it up with cans of baked beans and water, etc.
Just watch historically. I mean, even the banking business. 2019, the repo market collapsed. That's where the banks go to borrow money. It collapsed, and then suddenly COVID appeared. I went, oh, is this an accident?
That's interesting.
Interesting, because you watch this stuff. Is there a coincidence?
It means if I'm a bank and I've got mortgage assets, if I've got a pool of mortgages, which are my assets, and I've got liabilities where I've borrowed money from depositors on the other side if I'm a bank, repo means that I can go to the government will buy my mortgages off me for the face value of the
Correct.
mortgage. So if I lend Robert $100,000 and there's 10,000 of Roberts in my pool and I need some cash to lend more money to more Roberts, but I'm running out of cash because I'm a bank, because I'm not receiving the deposits, then I can go to the government and the government runs a repo program where they will take my mortgages off me. In your case, they put them in Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and they'll give us cash for it as the bank, and then we're going to lend some more money. And the repo market, you're saying, in 2019, prior to COVID, collapsed. So there wasn't as much liquidity in the system, the liquidity being money available for the banking system.
Correct.
Because what you just said to me is really interesting, because when COVID hit, within 4 months, our central bank here cut a check of $190 billion to our banking system. They said, banks, here's $190 billion. We'll give you to a 0.1%, fixed for 3 years.
Yeah.
Go lend it. And of course, that created inflation and the bubble. The property market bubble. It just went off. And then, of course, last year, the government said, well, we want that repaid because the 3 years is up, 2023. Now the banks are raising money at 6%. So our interest rates are higher. You know who's suffering? The consumer.
The average guy.
The guy borrowed money 3 years, all of a sudden he's gone from fixed 1.99, now he's paying 7%. Our consumers are paying for this. The banks are making the same amount of profit as they've always made. They're just charging the borrower more. And the way forward was, we're going to put interest rates up. And now the consumer's bearing the risk of this. You know, it's really interesting. I remember Milton Friedman. I remember watching him in the 90s, and it's up on YouTube these days, Friedman. He says, consumers never create inflation. Governments do.
Correct. They print money.
They print money and then make it available for
the rich.
System. Yeah. And the only people who make money out of that is the rich people at the end of the day. I think what you're sort of saying is, be like the rich guys.
Think like my rich dad, not my poor dad.
Learn from the rich dad. And I think what you're sort of saying here, and it's quite compelling, there's no point fighting against the machine. I mean, you can storm the White House or whatever you want to do, but that's not going to do anything at the end of the day. The system will close you down.
Educate yourself.
Educate yourself.
Right. It's easier to do something for other people. Give and you shall receive. When you do it for other people, stuff comes in. But if you're just taking for yourself, who cares? You know, you're greedy. And that's a big, big difference there. And if we don't educate ourselves, then shame on us. But schools will not do it because schools are complicit with the banks. They're Marxist. And I respect the freedom of choice. You can be a Marxist, you can be a capitalist. But without financial education, as you know in the banking industry, if you don't have any financial education, you can't be a capitalist. As my rich dad taught me, it says your banker never asks you for your report card. Your bank wants to see your financials. The other thing about financial literacy is, do you speak the language of money? So when I hear guys throwing on EBITDA and this, I go, no, it's just how much money is coming in, how much money is going out. What's an asset? Assets put money in your pocket. Liabilities take money from your pocket. If you change your vocabulary, you change your life. That's how powerful words are. But they don't teach you the language of money. They don't teach you taxes at school. In Trump, they don't pay taxes legally. If you know what you're doing, you don't have to pay taxes. See, the more debt I use, debt became money in 71 when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. The more debt I use, more tax breaks I get. Why? Because if you and I don't borrow money, as you know, the economy crashes. So we have to have people borrowing money for the economy to keep growing. So that's why they keep raising interest rates. People can't borrow money. Meanwhile, your population's increasing. People can't afford to live here now. I think it's up to every individual to take control of their own finances, their own financial statement, and don't expect the government to take care of you. That's very liberal, which is kind. But, you know, I was taught you teach a man a fish, you feed him for life. Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. And socialism wants to give people fish and makes the problem bigger and worse.
Instead of teaching them how to fish.
How do you manage a financial statement? Your financial statement is your report card when you leave school. Think like a rich person, like a capitalist. And teach your kids.